My name is Ayuningtyas, and I'll be the moderator for today. And now I'll introduce the speakers, including myself. And I represent Charity Foundation from Pakistan. Our next speaker is the Venerable Huan, and I'm Pham from Dharma Voices for Animals. And lastly, our third speaker will be Herdiana from Animal Friends Jogja from Indonesia. Every speaker will have 20 minutes, which will be followed by a Q&A session for this part of the presentation. So firstly, I'll begin, and I'll start with my presentation. The topic for today, of course, is compassion for all beings, something that's very generally considered to include all life, essentially, and that's what my presentation at least is about. It's called Interspecies Justice and Disasters, because the thing is, the era that we're living in, we cannot no longer talk about climate change anymore, because that would have been 20 years old discussion. Now we're living in the age of disasters. It's quite a different conversation. And while there are many things that cause disasters, we are not cognizant of the fact that there are other life forms other than us who are victims in these situations. Our work that we do during disasters. So what you see in this picture is, of course, Pakistan flooded in 2022, when 1/3 of our nation was completely underwater. And there were a lot of casualties, which I'll discuss as a case study. But the thing is, this is normally what we see. What we see is disasters happening, and then we see human beings, which is normal for some countries, but and that is because the animals are kind of invisible there, and that's what we're trying to change. And so is the environment as well. This is what we don't see. We don't see and we don't acknowledge that animals can be equal victims of disasters. I hope all of you will agree with the fact that 100% of the animals are not responsible for causing any disaster. There 100% of them are victims. However, there are certain systems that exist that are not often discussed in climate change or disaster reduction conversations. As a result, we are all suffering. And that's, of course, the food system. But it's a very complex subject. Normally, we say the food system is to blame. Let's find a solution. However, we're asking too much of it. And I'll explain why that is relevant. However, the key part of my presentation today is, of course, about disasters. How many of you heard the term natural disaster? Almost everybody, right? That's the general word the government uses, that this is a natural disaster. The term natural implies that it's something they do not have any control over. Therefore, you cannot prevent it. Therefore, you cannot mitigate it. That's completely untrue. Because if you think about it, there is guaranteed human manipulation in the way disasters happen. Normally, what happens is we do a lot of political charity. We do a lot of charity through organizations across the world when disasters happen, which is really good. But have you ever wondered that disaster could have been prevented in the first place? Governments don't think about that. For countries like Pakistan, under the National Disaster Management Act, we have no policy preventing disasters. Can you imagine that? And as a result, when disasters happen, the terminology that they'll use is, it's a natural disaster. There's nothing we can do about it. So this term has to be broken away when we have to understand that there are no natural disasters. They're man-made caused, and there's a process behind it. And that process is basically divided into 4 steps. The first one is always prevention. That is something we never talk about. Because if we do, then we will have to put our dollar in the right place, or the currency that we use. That would also mean stopping the food system the way it's governed right now, and doing other things, which is something the industry is not willing to do. But many of you might not even know that preventing disasters is even possible. Then comes the preparedness stage. This is where you can predict them. Because the thing is, many of the disasters, while you cannot predict where they'll exactly happen, so there are a few questions that might be coming inside your head. That is not true. There might be some natural disasters. What about earthquakes? How do they happen? I agree with you. But the thing is, they can be predicted. There is scientific knowledge available in the form of early warning systems, which can predict that a disaster or an earthquake might happen in this place in the next 5 years. That science is available. And the question actually is, if you can predict something, you don't know exactly where it happened, but you have the responsibility to prevent the harm that will happen in the later stage. When you don't have such policies, of course, you're not going to think about preventing disasters, but rather you would be almost always focused on the response phase. This is what we all do. This is what governments do. Because when a disaster happens and a big government in your country goes and says, hey, we are donating this much amount of money, this much amount of food, and we're saving everybody, they're basically doing political charity. It has got nothing to do with the victims who will never be made whole, whether human or animal. And as a result, this cycle keeps on continuing. And more often than not, you might also agree with the fact when disasters have already happened, that's when we create our policies. That's when we think that we need new laws. But it's already too late. It's basically disaster-dependent policies that will be limited to that particular disaster. And if something else happens, there are again no prevention policies. And as a result, humans and animals will completely suffer. For countries like Pakistan, in our National Disaster Management Act, there is no provision for animals, none at all. But they're referred in other terms, which I will discuss. But that terminology is borrowed from the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction System. That language comes from there, and that is something all countries adopt. But we're not thinking about that. And the two factors that you need to understand is about exposure and vulnerabilities. So there's a very stark difference between disasters and hazards. A hazard is the event itself, which is the flood, which is the earthquake, which we often see. And I'm truly sorry, to see that there are these things happening all over the world. There was a flood in Nepal last week. There was a flood in Pakistan 3 weeks ago. And there was a hurricane or a cyclone happening in the America. Why is that happening so common? Have you ever thought about it? We should. But have we also thought about that they're not natural and likely can we prevent them because we can predict them? However, a hazard is actually the event. But the things that are often ignored, which are the two tools when you design a disaster risk reduction framework, is exposure and vulnerabilities. So some beings will be more vulnerable than others. Who would that be? If you're talking about humans, that's the elderly and the children. If you're talking about animals, it's all animals. And the thing is, if you do not remove or reduce that vulnerability, those populations will continue to suffer. And therefore, their exposure will increase. So that's kind of like the technical language that's used in disaster law. But the main message that I want to give to you is that there are no such thing as natural disasters. We have responsibility because the thing is the impact that they cause on animals is profound. There are destruction of habitats. Many animals are displaced, which I would call as animal refugee crisis, something that's not recognized yet. There are impact on birds, because many of you might know that birds have these amazing respiratory systems. They gain in the smoke much more than us, but that was not how their body was designed to be. And therefore they die, and they cannot no longer do those migrations. And lastly, our marine life, which is the biggest carbon sink responsible for combating climate change. But the thing is, when these disasters happen, we're actually creating a pathway to more disasters. This is where we bring the conversation back home. And these are questions for you. These are very relevant questions that will decide if we will survive as a population. The first one is, how do we feed the expected 10 billion human population by 2050? These are numbers from the UN. I didn't make them up. But people are saying, per the data, that there will be 10 billion human beings in the world. Now imagine, we already have a food security crisis right now. How will we feed those people? How many of us will go into poverty? Especially nations in Asia who do not have the resources. This now becomes a global north and global south debate where our interests, particularly Asia's interests, are not represented. The second question, this is very human-centric. I'm asking you to be selfish humans. Think about yourself at this point. How do we combat the impacts of climate change and avoid disasters and therefore ensure human survival? This is a question normally I ask to non-vegans, people who don't have no interest or connection with animals. But they have to think about themselves as well, because there are so many disasters that happen as a poor mistreatment of animals. Zoonotic disasters, to name one. COVID-19 was a good example of that. And now, of course, the world is trying to create that pandemic treaty, but in itself, there are some consistent deficiencies, such as these natural disasters and the terminology. So what you see at the background is basically the framework in the international level, which is the United Nations framework for Sendai, framework for disaster risk reduction. It's non-binding, which is another problem. So we have no international treaty on disasters, which is binding, anywhere. But the language is even much more complicated. So I want you to read the expected outcomes. It says the substantial reduction of disaster risk and losses in lives, livelihoods, and health, and in the economic, physical, social, cultural, and environmental assets of persons, businesses, communities, and countries. The term livelihood implies the property status of animals. They are termed as that way, and basically, if you want to protect, you will only be able to protect farm animals, but for the sake of human beings. So the language itself is very anthropocentric, and we need to find it, we need to change it. And as a result, in the Sendai framework at the international level, there's no proper debate happening on the inherent rights of animals as victims in disasters. This is where we borrow all the language. However, there have been some developments. I know we're in Asia, but this example is relevant because this is when the world's first ever domestic law was passed for protecting animals. But it too was anthropocentric. So when Hurricane Katrina happened, a lot of people chose not to leave their homes because they had a human-animal bond with their companion animals. It's a good thing. But at the bottom of it, it's still anthropocentric because whatever you're protecting is the human's interest. As a result, the animals do benefit, and this is a theory that people in animal disaster law are using very extensively, but it is still anthropocentric. For us, it's important because intentions matter a lot more than actions. However, this casualty resulted in the world's first ever animal disaster law, which was basically about protecting companion animals in time of disasters. So it's a law, okay? And then there were other laws passed, but the one that I want to refer the most to you is the Industrial Agriculture Accountability Act. It was not passed. But what it was asking was to stop the slaughterhouse of the factory farm industry because of the climate change impacts. And that's relevant. So the case study that I'm referring to you right now is basically about Pakistan, when the floods happened. So there was data collected on human deaths, which was around 1,700, and the only data that was collected for animals was livestock. The reference is again to the livelihood. So over 1.16 million farm animals died. And no data for any other animal was ever recorded, because it was never in the mandate. The thing was, this disaster was predicted because there were research done by the Imperial College of London, which said that while we cannot put exact figures, climate change is the cause. And greenhouse gases in particular are the cause. So the other key lesson that I want to give you with this presentation is, of course, about malnutrition and other questions that we ask the food system. How many of you thought that the food system is this complex? It's not just what you put in and something comes out. It's very, very complex. And there are a lot of parts of the food system as well. And now imagine the questions you're asking the food system. You're asking it to solve the problem of malnutrition. You're asking it to solve the problem of access of livelihood. You're also asking it to solve the problem of climate change. Then you're asking it to solve public health. Then you're also asking it to solve animal rights. But you're not contemplating all these different areas of the food system. That's very important, and we all need to understand that. This is something you already know, but if we directly focus on plants and eating them directly, we'll be saving 83% of the calories. I'm sure all of you know this. But this is the important part. 1/3 of our global greenhouse gas emissions come from the food system. And that was the main reason why the floods in Pakistan happened. But nobody will be able to make that connection. However, as advocates, we can use disasters as a very important tool in advocating for more plant-based systems, factory farms at the global level. This is something you already know about as well, but this is also a global north number. So the Paris Agreement basically says that if the way things go the way they are, we will never meet that target. But this 1.5 degree number is a global north number. It was never meant for Asia. If the global temperature even rises by 0.4 or 0.1, we will be devastated. They will be affected at this number. That is, again, a problem of Asian issues not being represented. And the last starking fact is that the United Nations office says that if the way things happen, there will be over 560 disasters happening across the world, and over 37.6 million people will go into extreme poverty. The main problem that I want to refer to you is about intergenerational inequity. So the thing is, for countries like Pakistan, when a disaster happens, it causes food security problems. And those same food security problems leads us to relying on the same factory farm models. Those factory farm models then again cause the same disasters. So we're caught in a cycle. We're never able to go out. And that's a very serious problem. So this is more academic, but we need some kind of a framework to determine how animals can be part of the disaster framework. I wrote a paper on this. This is a bit technical, but I'll share that with you later. But we are trying to create a system where we can include animals and the intention behind how they're referred into the food system. So lastly, the recommendations for all of you. We need education that industrial agriculture is a root cause of disasters. We need to update the United Nations framework. We need to create policies on moratoriums, creating effective loss and damage funds, mechanisms for data on animal deaths, which does not exist across the world, and policies for disease traceability. So that's the main thing. And the answer, of course, is interspecies justice. And for this, actually, I would like to call my co-founder, Ahmed Malik, to share a few pictures of our work that we do in Pakistan. Thank you. I know that was dense, but we will expand that together.
Thank you, Altamash, for covering the most of the part. So I'll be showing you some of the pictures that what we have done in our country for the animal, environmental, and human rights. So primarily, we are working on the clean drinking water wells in the whole of the country. And the beauty of this water well lies in this thing that one water well covers all the three segments. For humans, of course, they can drink the water from it. And for the animals, we have a separate water pond, as you can see here. Can I have the slider, please? So this is the water pond for the animals, and they can take the water from it. And also, it's not shown in the picture, which we have recently started, is the green vegetable garden with each water well. So the community can have the fresh veggies grown from in the backyard, and they don't have to rely on the retailers and the market. So it's a complete community package that we are doing. And you will be very happy to know that we have done a lot of water wells. And if you talk about the different categories, we have done solar water wells in our country as well. So much so that we have implemented 1,400 solar water wells, including all the three packages. Yeah. So again, a few of the pictures which I'm going to highlight to you. So some of the hand pumps that we have done in our country, which includes all the three packages which I just mentioned. So this is the solar water well, and this is the big one. And in here you can see these are all done in a marginalized communities. This is the desert area which you are seeing. It's if any of my audience know about the Cholistan desert, this is where it is implemented. It's a complete whitish desert. Now you can imagine the impact which has made this by the solar water plant. So again, a little bit about the hand pumps. And this is the aerial view and the drone footage, how it feels like. This is the community where it is being installed. So again, very backward area, extreme poverty sites. So yeah, I'm continuously getting a signal that we are getting a bit, taking a lot of time. So I'll be quick in my presentation. In here you can see we are working for the animal rights as well. We are also working for the animal rescue and protection at the times of disasters. So we have a proper project made on it, and this is some of the pictures which you can see. This is again for the vaccination part that we have done recently, which we did. We protected and secured about 300 livestock animals in the recent floods, which came in the Pakistan in August 2024. This is the farm animal shelter which we have made. This is one of the iconic projects which we have done for the animal plants, animal rights. And this is like we have a proper veterinary doctor placed here, and any animal can come in, take the shelter, take the necessary medical treatment, vaccination, as much as the silage feed is also available all the time. Again, this is about the disaster farm animal shelter. Yeah. So these are some of the NFIs, non-food items that we do in our country in the times of disaster. So community benefits from it as well. This is about the rehabilitation, reconstruction, and houses making development and during the disaster zones. Again, the aerial view, how we are doing it. This is about the temporary schooling that we are teaching the children about the vegan food system. So this is, we implemented at the time of disaster for the temporary schooling for the children, telling them about how healthy it is to get on the vegan diets. This is all about the vegan food system. Yeah, this is the interesting one which I want to show to you. So this is about the green vegetable garden, which we are implementing with every water well that we are doing. So I earlier mentioned that we have done 1,200 plus solar water wells. That includes only the solar plant, which I'm talking about. If you talk about the hand pumps, there are even more in that number. So this is how the vegetable garden looks like. In here you can, sorry. So yeah, so in here you can see this is the whole whitish desert. It's called Cholistan Desert in Pakistan. And as you can see, the area is very underprivileged. And this is the kitchen garden where we have developed, and the community can take the fresh veggies from grown in the backyard. So again, this is about the plant water wells. That's it. I'll take Thomas to take it from here.
Thank you so much. Now we'll invite our second esteemed speaker, Venerable Huan, with the translation son.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming here today. And my name is Sun. I'm the assistant director of Dharma Voices for Animals, DVA. I'm not the main speaker. The main speaker would be our country director, Venerable Thich Huan, and I will be his interpreter. And he will be talking about compassion for animals. But I would just would like to introduce a little bit about our organization so that you can understand the connection between our Venerable and our organization. Also, the activities that we have been doing in Vietnam with his speech about compassion for animals. So it will just take a few minutes of your time, and thank you for your patience. My presentation will be divided into two main parts. The first one, I will briefly introduce to you some background information about our organization, and then I will move on to talk about our activities that we have been implementing in Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Vietnam. So first one, who are we? DVA is a US American-based non-profit organization with members in 50 countries, and we are the only international Buddhist animal rights organization. Our focus is to raise awareness of animals suffering within the worldwide Buddhist community. Let's move on to our activities in different countries. In Sri Lanka, we have been conducting over 100 presentations every month with the participants like teachers, women, soldiers, parents, and children from schools, temples, women's groups, armies, and so on. And these presentations not only advocate for compassion to animals, but also highlight how such dietary choices resonate deeply with the core tenets of Buddhism. Shifting to Thailand, our main focus is enhancing the health and well-being of monks through dietary education. As you know, monks in Thailand are not vegans or vegetarians because they follow Theravada school in Buddhism. So our main focus is to equip lay people with skills to prepare nutritious meals for monks to foster a harmonious and health-conscious community. Through our initiatives, a lot of huge temples in Thailand have agreed to participate actively in our programs, and some have signed historic agreements with us to serve plant-based on daily basis. Our activities in Vietnam are multifaceted. We have 4 main activities. Firstly, we offer free training courses for restaurant owners who are not vegan or non-vegetarians so that they can put vegan dishes in their menu so we can have more options for vegans and vegetarians. Our second activity is quite similar in a way that we support pagoda volunteers so that they can be ready, they can be well prepared for grand events at their temples or pagodas so that they can serve, they can be able to cook and serve delicious meals. The next one is that we co-sponsor and co-organize significant events in which we blend Dharma teaching, nutritional guidance, and vegan culinary arts. And during only the first 6 months of 2024, we have reached over new 25 pagodas in the north of Vietnam with the participation of 70,000 individuals. Beyond that, we also show our commitment to environmental stewardship, like we participate in tree planting activities in some remote areas in Vietnam where trees are needed. And finally, we also organize some charity events aimed to help disadvantaged people, especially in mountainous area, and especially children, as you can see on the slide. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation here so that our Venerable can come up and talk about a Dharma of loving kindness for the protection of all living things. Thank you so much. I would like to invite onto the stage our Venerable Thich Huan. I will be interpreting his speech.
I'm sorry, Mr. Citizen, happy translate, so I talk by Vietnamese. Yeah. Kính thưa quý vị, chúng tôi rất là vui mừng và cảm ơn quý vị cho tôi có cơ hội có mặt ngày hôm nay để phát biểu vào hội nghị chúng tôi thấy là vô cùng quan trọng.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers for today's insightful talk regarding the protection of the environment and animals.
Là một tu sĩ Phật giáo thì chúng tôi được tiếp cận với cái góc nhìn của Phật giáo và trên cái quan điểm sự thực hành lòng từ bi, tâm từ bi, và đó là cái đức hiếu sinh. Hiếu sinh là chúng ta trân trọng sự sống của muôn loài.
As a Buddhist monk, I would like to address the subject from a Buddhist point of view. When you talk about Buddhism, you are talking about kindness. Equal love or kindness for life is the most important virtue and the normal way to live in the Buddhist Dharma.
Theo cái đức hy sinh để chúng ta thực hành, trước hết chúng ta cần phải có cái sự tỉnh giác, sự tu tập chính niệm và tỉnh giác, và nhận biết rõ được những cái cảm nhận trong tâm thức của chúng ta, những suy nghĩ, những cảm giác, những cái tâm hành ở trong người chúng ta, và từ đó chúng ta cũng thấy được những nguyên nhân gây ra khổ đau ở chính nơi bản thân mình và cũng như ở muôn loài sự sống khác.
To cultivate the essence of loving life is to embrace mindfulness, allowing us to deeply experience and understand our thoughts, emotions, sensations, words, and actions. From this awareness, we can attain mastery over ourselves, ensuring that we do not inflict suffering upon ourselves, others, or all sentient beings.
Từ lời chính niệm, tỉnh giác, chúng ta thực hành thiền định và chúng ta thấy được cái mối liên hệ của mọi sự vật hiện tượng, và chúng ta thấy được cái sự công bằng ở trong sự sống của chúng ta. Chúng ta thấy được cái quy luật cũng như là luật nhân quả tại cái thế giới mà chúng ta đang sống này.
The fundamental principle of demonstrating the virtue of love for life is the comprehension of the law of cause and effect. This law is precise and equitable and is not constrained by space or time. It is the natural law of the universe that what you sow is what you will reap.
Và tất cả mọi loài sự sống ở trên trái đất này, nhất là loài người, đều có chung những cái vui buồn, sầu bi, khổ ưu não, và những cái vui buồn đó, nhất là đối với chúng ta, đều phát xuất từ ba cái nghiệp hành động tạo tác, từ thân, từ miệng và từ suy nghĩ, có thể được gọi là thân khẩu ý. Và từ lấy thân khẩu ý này mà nó đã nó có những cái hành động thiện hoặc là bất thiện, làm cái hành động bất thiện làm khổ đau cho muôn loài và được khổ đau cho chính bản thân chúng ta.
All sentient beings find themselves enveloped in sorrow, grief, and suffering due to the lack of understanding of this law. In this state, they allow their actions through body, speech, and mind to be guided by the relentless pull of desire, which, rooted in ignorance, brings pain to themselves and to others. Desire, in its essence, transcends the bounds of cause and effect, seeking only fulfillment. Yet, in this pursuit, it often brings forth suffering both to oneself and to others.
Con người, I'm sorry. Con người có thể coi là một loài động vật, loài sự sống cấp cao, chúng sinh hữu tình, nghĩa là cái sự sống của có tình thức cấp cao và có trí thông minh, có ý thức và có trí tuệ. Và động vật nên vốn thực sự các loại động vật cũng có trí thông minh, cũng có sự hiểu biết, cũng có cái tâm hành giống như con người, là ham muốn những sự gọi là ham sống sợ chết, cùng có chung cái ý tưởng này. Và khi chúng ta thực hành thiền định và khi chúng ta thấy được cái mối liên hệ giữa chúng ta với muôn loài và cái tâm hiếu sinh, cái đức hiếu sinh được hình thành trong tâm thức của chúng ta. Chúng ta nhìn mọi loài vật với cái tâm bình đẳng.
Because of the heightened awareness and intelligence, humans can be seen as a superior animal species. Humans are hardwired to be ignorant, greedy, and angry. Fortunately, thanks to their awareness, people have the power to improve themselves, overcome their natural inclination toward evil, make the conscious decision to live a life of virtue, and ultimately bring about a world where everyone and everything may thrive in harmony and contentment. As people further engage in loving life, the shadows of base instincts begin to fade, allowing the spirit to embrace noble virtues. In this gentle transformation, one moves closer to the essence of humanity, ascending towards a state of purity and grace.
Và có thể nói con người là chúa tể của muôn loài động vật, chúa tể của muôn loài, không phải có thể bắt nhốt, giết hại, tiêu diệt các loài khác, mà ngược lại, con người cũng thể hiện tình bao dung, tình thương đối với muôn loài, đem đến sự sống bình an, hạnh phúc đến với muôn loài.
It can be said that humans are the rulers of all species, not because they are able to capture, murder, or destroy other species, but rather because they are tolerant, loving, and have the potential to bring about a peaceful, joyful, and wonderful life together, thanks to the power of goodness. Within lies the law of cause and effect.
Và đức hiếu sinh có thể nói là nền tảng. Từ trên cái chúng ta nhìn thấy được cái luật nhân quả mà chúng ta có cái tình thương yêu, hay là cái đức hiếu sinh. Và đức hiếu sinh với đem lại cái sự sống tình thương đến với tất cả muôn loài muôn thú, và cho tới cỏ cây hoa lá, những môi trường xung quanh chúng ta cũng bảo vệ sự sống của các cái môi trường cũng như là sự sống của các cái loài khác.
The essence of cherishing life has its roots in the law of cause and effect, guiding individuals to embrace challenges in pursuit of a fulfilling life. Leading a fulfilling life amidst greed, wrath, and ignorance is challenging, but it is achievable with comprehension and adherence to the principle of cause and effect.
Chúng tôi đã đề xướng cái phương pháp để giảm thiểu sự khổ đau cho các loài động vật khác bằng giảm thiểu sự giết hại các loài động vật khác bằng cách đưa ra cái chương trình ăn chay. Thực hiện ăn chay đem đến cho chúng ta cái sức khỏe về thể chất và sức khỏe về tinh thần.
And we have implemented a series of activities and campaigns to promote veganism and vegetarian in Vietnam, to end suffering for animals, and not because of the fear of karma, but from a genuine affection for one's own existence and the lives of others.
Có thể nói ăn chay còn là một cái phương pháp để bảo vệ môi trường sống ở xung quanh chúng ta, nhất là hiện nay chúng ta phải đối mặt với sự biến đổi ở khí hậu và môi trường đã dẫn đến biết bao nhiêu thảm họa của thiên nhiên.
Being a vegan or promoting veganism is also a way to protect the environment, especially in the context of today's pollution and crisis.
Và do thời gian có hạn chúng xin phép được nêu lên cái hành động thiết thực mà chúng tôi thường tổ chức ở tại cộng đồng, ở tại chùa, là tổ chức các cái chương trình nói về sức khỏe, nói về ăn chay và thực hành những chương trình bảo vệ môi trường, bảo vệ động vật hoang dã và đối xử tử tế với các loài vật.
Due to the limited time, I just want to mention some activities that we have been doing in our pagoda. At Pham Pagoda, we have long recognized the deep significance of the vegan movement and have consistently planned both large-scale and more informal events to spread the word of veganism. Our goal is to inspire people of all ages, backgrounds, and occupations to lead healthier lives and do good deeds.
Và những chương trình đó có thể nói là chương trình rất là phong phú. Trong buổi hôm nay chúng tôi không nêu đến hết được. Ngang đây chúng tôi xin được bày tỏ lòng cảm ơn một lần nữa, cảm ơn tổ chức sự kiện cũng như cảm ơn tất cả quý vị đã lắng nghe. Cảm ơn.
Due to the limited amount of time, I wouldn't be able to talk more about our campaigns and activities. I would like to conclude by express my gratitude once again to the organizers and to all of you who participate in the discussion today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Test. Hello everyone, my name is Diana and I am going to talk on behalf of Animal Friends Jogja. Thank you all for coming here and coming to this, I hope, this powerful session. Together, we will talk about compassion and action. We are doing this holistic approach in Animal Friends Jogja for our campaign called Cage-Free Indonesia. So before we dive into the holistic approach to farmed animal welfare, it's important to remember that no significant change can be made in isolation. As Helen Keller once said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. This perfectly captures the essence of our efforts, working collectively with producers, corporate, public and consumers, and also policymakers, academics, and organizations like we're doing right now, to bring about the lasting improvement in animal welfare. It's through these interconnected efforts that real systemic change becomes possible. Now, this is some key points that we will discuss today. And I think we'll start from what is a holistic approach. This is the definition of holistic approach that we are cherish in Animal Friends Jogja. This is where we emphasize the interconnected efforts among stakeholders. Our organizations, Animal Friends Jogja, we rarely works alone in our farmed animals welfare advocacy program, and collaboration across sectors, especially with the governments and the policymakers, is essential to improving animal welfare in Indonesia especially. This is particularly true for farmed animals since it's a complex issue in Indonesia and that requires a holistic approach. When we discuss farmed animal welfare in Indonesia, it's very crucial to engage all of the stakeholders as each plays a really important and significant role in this goal. For instance, maybe I can take as an example for government, because I'm the government relations manager. For instance, the government is one of the key. We need policies that ban cages and maybe encourage cage-free farming producers by providing incentives. This initiative acknowledges the producer's responsibility in maintaining animal welfare in the production of eggs. So while comparing partial advocacy to holistic approach, there are some key differences in both benefits and challenges. While partial advocacy focuses in specific issues like public outreach or corporate commitments, leading to very quick wins with fewer resources and stakeholders. But however, it has limited scope and it often addressing only short-term solutions without tackling systemic issues. On the other hand, holistic advocacy or a holistic approach drives systemic change by involving all stakeholders. As I said, the government, producers, consumers, academics. It will ensuring long-term and sustainable solution for all of us. While this approach is more comprehensive, it's also more complex, resource intensive for sure, and most important, it has a slower pace since it's slower to implement due to the need for the greater coordination. In summary, partial advocacy offers quick wins, while holistic advocacy or holistic approach aims for deeper, lasting change. And this is one of the case study that I'm offering to all of you. This is one of our program called Cage-Free Indonesia. This is the campaign for layer hands welfare. So the key to holistic approach is collaborations across sectors, right? Which highlights the importance of addressing systemic issue in animal agriculture. As I said, we need to emphasize the interconnected efforts among stakeholders. Initially, IFJ began with partial approach first to achieve our farmed animal advocacy goals. We began around 2016, focusing on public awareness and corporate commitments and also campaigning. As we can see on the above two here, this one, and this one. And while we improved awareness on the issue, we soon realized that through public and business might be willing to switch to cage-free eggs, there was minimal work being done on ensuring transitions from caged to cage-free systems. And therefore, they will not be able to access cage-free eggs and fulfill their commitments. The commitment will be quite meaningless in terms of direct impact on the layer hens. Therefore, in 2020-2021, we adapted our strategy to holistic approach, which includes producers, academics, and government, and also policy reform, advocacy in the addition. So first, we focus on raising public awareness about the cruelty within current system for farmed animals, especially chickens and ducks, and the products they generate. These outreach emphasize on helping the public to understand the source of the eggs they are eating and asking them to choose or commit to cage-free options. We usually do this through corporate engagement, direct action, and social media campaigns, and also investigations and resource improvement, as well as organizational alliance, like we're doing with Open Wing Alliance, and also Act for Farmed Animals. This organizational networking, like Asia for Animal Policy Coalition, and also from our own employee and volunteer development. We engage with corporations across the spectrum, as well, globally, nationally in Indonesia, and also locally in Yogyakarta district. Our goal is to secure for cage-free eggs by particular year in the future, if not immediately. Yeah. Producer awareness, usually managed by our welfare specialist, who is also a veterinarian, engaging producers through visits and focus group discussion, helping them through the process of improving animal welfare standards, and also transitioning to cage-free systems. We support them by connecting them to the markets and connecting them to the stakeholders that can provide trainings like global food partners, and also certifications if they need one, such as certified humane by Humane Farm Animal Care. And of course, without the government supports, producers have voiced that it will be difficult to transition. So outreach to both central and national level, national and regional government is very crucial to ensure that this transition receive the support they need. We've been doing advocacy and collaborations with agriculture departments across Yogyakarta province, as well as the several key ministries across Indonesia, such as the Ministry of Agriculture, the coordinating ministries of economic affairs, and also the National Development Planning Agency. Again, we realized that this systemic change requires support from scientific research and data to be successful, and that needs to be relevant to the national context. Therefore, we collaborate also with academics and other organizations to promote research and also training or education on animal welfare, also for systemic or technical reform within educational training institution. We've been doing lots of seminars with several state and private universities, including Gajah Mada University and also Brahmaputra University, as a guest lecturer for animal welfare of farmed animals. Well, a critical aspect of our work is policy advocacy, since it's a really long-term process and it's very slow. Currently, we are advocating for opportunities to influence policy change that support animal welfare and the gradual phase out of battery cages. And while, as we can see, the holistic approach offers numerous benefits, I think it's important to acknowledge the key challenge as well. This covers internal challenges within our organization, intra-organizational challenges when connecting or working with other organizations in the field, and of course, the challenges related to our target groups. Well, when expanding to a holistic approach, our organization may struggle to secure funding that's necessary for the comprehensive program, or we may not have enough personnel or staff to effectively engage with all of the stakeholders. And due to working with other sectors, ethical barriers may emerge in addition as we transition to that. We need to aware that strain on the people within our organizations. Therefore, we need to analyze our capabilities and determine our next steps. For example, AFJ was able to secure funding for developing our advocacy program, this cage-free program, to the producer, government, and academic sectors. So first we start with campaign and businesses, right? And now we expand that into producer, government, and academic sectors with new funding added to our organization. Nowadays, more funders are willing to fund movement building in regions of Asia where there is minimal awareness or policy support for farm animal welfare. So that is very beneficial for us. And also decide if we need more staff in the programs. Well, previously in Indonesia, it was very difficult to find professional personnel to work in this field for farmed animals field. Recently, this is changing with programs such as fellowship from welfare matters and incubator programs, and also animal welfare law courses that is producing skilled professionals on farmed animal welfare issues. Another challenge faced could be due to differing strategies between organizations working in the same sectors or field. For example, some organizations work directly with producers, while animal activists may not be open in working directly with the producers. In summary, if our resources are constrained, we are unable to access funding, we don't have the personnel to address the significant challenges, we need to collaborate with all organizations that we could communicate and reach out. And I think the open communication and collaboration is the key. That's why we believe that a holistic approach is something worth doing. Holistic advocacy offers effective collaboration between organizations and sectors, empowering them to reach more stakeholders. This collaboration builds momentum for a long-term systemic change, and that leading to stronger, more sustainable outcomes for animal welfare. And that concludes our discussion today. Now I call everyone you here to advocate for the better living by any of your professions, whether you're activists, advocate, even your producers, or maybe policymakers here. I encourage you, all of you, to do something for the better world. And I hope together we could do something more in the future to make this world a better place. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy to answer all of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we will be basically doing a small Q&A session because we're very limited on time, and I would request the speakers to come up on stage. And if somebody could help me with the chairs, that'd be amazing. So you can put questions in the Huva app. Thank you. So my first question actually is to you, Herdiana, about your holistic approach. So can you give us more evidence or more guidance on how to basically do it properly? How do we properly enforce the holistic approach? Properly. Yeah. Yeah.
Test. Oh, yeah, it's working. So for doing a proper holistic advocacy, I think it's very important to see the whole systemic thing that is happening. For example, when we are doing advocacy for farmed animals, it's kind of complex in Indonesia since it's everyone's need for the food safety and those things that related to farm animals, right? And that will be something very big due to every stakeholders that included to those system. It's more than economic system, and I think it's very important to include everyone in the system since it's economic things, The government needs to be there, the producer needs to be there, the business for the markets to be there, the people as the consumers need to be there as well. So I think the first thing first, we need to see how the system goes before doing this holistic advocacy. Who will be included? Who will be? Who will we reach out to regarding to this holistic advocacy? That's will be a very technical thing.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
so much. My next question is for the Venerable Huan. It's basically about advocating for vegan lifestyle and animal sentience in Buddhism. So if you can guide the audience on how they can make those arguments, that'll be very helpful. The question is about how to advocate for veganism and animal sentience in Buddhism. Yeah, yeah. Animal sentience and veganism. Yeah.
Như chúng tôi vừa phát biểu trong bài phát biểu trước đó thì chúng tôi thấy rằng là sự mối liên hệ giữa cá nhân mỗi chúng ta với thế giới xung quanh rất là mật thiết, không chỉ loài người với loài người và loài người với muôn loài sự sống khác. Sự sống ở đây nói không là những sự sống của những loài động vật mà nó có tỉnh thức, cho đến sự sống của những loài mà không có tỉnh thức như là cỏ cây, sông núi xung quanh. Cái môi trường sống của chúng ta đều rất là quan trọng, và ý thức được điều đó thì chúng ta cần phải xây dựng một cái đời sống rất là thân thiện, rất là tử tế với môi trường. Và môi trường ở đây được hiểu rộng là tất cả những gì ở bên ngoài chúng ta, và rồi tử tế thân thiện với môi trường trong tâm thức của chúng ta. Khi chúng ta có trên cái nền tảng hiểu biết như vậy thì chúng ta kêu gọi mọi người cùng thực hành cái nếp sống thân thiện, nếp sống tốt lành, không làm khổ mình, không làm khổ người, không làm khổ cho sự sống ở xung quanh chúng ta.
Hello. Okay, so to answer your question, as I mentioned earlier in my speech, I talk about the close link between individuals and the world. And I do not only mention the connection between human and human. It's also about the link between human and all other sentient beings, including animals, plants, trees, and all the environment around us, like even with the rivers, mountains, and so on. And all play an important role. It is very important for us to be fully aware of this and to build a kind and environmentally friendly lifestyle. And by environment, again, I would like to emphasize that environment can refer to everything around us and also the things inside us. So once we are fully aware of that, we'll be able to end all suffering for all life on earth. Thank you.
Và một điều nữa chúng tôi xin được nói là khi chúng ta ý thức được như vậy thì chúng tôi trong các cái buổi tiếp xúc với cộng đồng, với mọi người, chúng tôi kêu gọi mọi người tham gia các chương trình bảo vệ động vật nói chung và bảo vệ động vật hoang dã. Chúng ta phải đối xử một cách công bằng và tử tế với muôn loài. Đồng thời như vậy chúng ta cũng chính là đang bảo vệ cái con người lương tri của mỗi chúng ta.
Okay, so in order to do that, as a Buddhist, in all our contacts or any kind of events that we have, we will be able to contact face to face with everyone, with the public. We should talk a lot about animal protection, including farm animals and wild animals, and launch campaigns to protect those animals. And it's also necessary to highlight for the public that they should be fair and equal to all sentient beings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now this is going to be funny. The question is addressed towards me, so I'm going to ask myself a question. So the question is basically, for my organization, how has the community response been to including animals into the water projects and the green gardens that we do? And also, how do we maintain health and hygiene around the wells? So for the first question, it's been increasing, but however, when we install these water projects, we normally don't tell the people what we're actually trying to do. So it's something more natural. And what really happens is, as you saw in those pictures that my co-founder shared, the humans are bringing their children and the animals are coming alongside them as well. So what's really happening is that the people, what we're trying to make them realize on their own is that their children have the same needs as their animals. And by connecting that same water project to building these green vegetable gardens, whereby we're directly changing the food source to plant-based, rather than giving these people meal and making them, dependent on it, that if we come only, then plant-based advocacy will happen. The response has been really great, but of course, there are other factors. For example, Pakistan is, from a financial perspective, really poor. We only work mostly in rural sections where these problems exist. So actually, most of Pakistan that's outside urban centers is kind of vegan. Most of our food is lentils and all these other kinds of things that I love to eat. However, because of these issues, it's very well received, which is, an unfortunate reason, but it helps us, our cause. So for them, it's food. Food for them is life. So they take it that way, and by directly changing their food source to plant-based, we are able to do this on a more grassroots level. So it's really helpful. For the hygiene and the health part, so I'm assuming that's around the maintenance of the wells, because if the water stays there, that's going to get stagnant and algae and other diseases will happen. So we have a policy of basically monitoring and evaluation. Every 4 months, every 3 months, we visit our water wells, which is a huge task, but we have over 1,500 of those. So we do that. Of course, disease prevention is a major part of it. So thank you so much for that. And I know we're very short on time and there's a tea break coming up. So I would actually like to thank all of you for joining us today, and myself, and for having this wonderful conversation. All of you can catch the speakers at a time to speak about these issues. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you for being such a wonderful translator. Thank you for being so kind, sharing your work with us. And thank you so much. Enjoy your tea break.